from the time that I was probably like 3 years old.
Yeah.
So the baseball thing was always a part of my life, part of the experience, and I really, I had a passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
My dad loved baseball. I had 3 brothers and a stepbrother. We all sort of excelled in different sports. This is kind of a fun/funny part of that story is we had a chance encounter with Mark Cuban.
Oh, no way. Shark Tank on the road?
Not on the road, actually at Shellback here in Manhattan Beach on a Tuesday. I had met my current business partner in the Chicago White Sox organization, Joe, and we roomed on the road in AA. We were playing in Birmingham, Alabama, and when we would play away games, we would talk about spiritual things. We would talk about life after baseball, like what does that look like? He was from out here, so he went to USC, grew up in Pasadena, and we had our first business venture idea while we were playing.
This is the MAAN with John Ward, where we explore being and becoming modern gentlemen through conversation.
Thank you so much. It's we had that fun time in the mountains.
Yes.
Where I first met you, and our buddy Connor, who's no longer with us.
Yeah, I mean that happened so fast. It's good though. We got pretty close with his family.
Yeah.
They're such special people.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be good for them.
Yeah.
They bought a house and he has some family and stuff up there, so
that's good.
Yeah.
I know that area. It's a nice area. I hope we see them.
We're gonna go visit, wife and because the kids are buds now, so
that's cool.
Yeah, my little one Juno, she had or one of my little ones, so Zeke and Elijah just moved away, and then another one of her like best friends that she plays with at the park every day. Just I guess the mom is from like Norway or something, and so they're going there for the summer. So like all of her friends are going.
That's cool.
Yeah. But Juno's like telling stories about Amalia today, and
the summer is gnarly there. You don't want to go there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's so bloody.
It may not be Norway. I don't even know. I can't remember, but I've never been.
Okay. But yeah, it's a bummer that we lost Connor. But
yeah, for sure.
It was good to chat, and I wanted to. Obviously, it's awesome that I got to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Here and there through the weekends at Vintage, and I wanted to chat some more about your story and like.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you? I'm always so fascinated by people that are doing new things and things in totally different areas than when they started, and how dreams reached a point and maybe took a different turn.
Yeah,
just how
sure.
life kind of puts another path in front of you. Not necessarily like, good or bad or some sort of definition or marker, on it, but just different.
Yeah.
So you grew up on the East Coast?
Yeah, I grew up in North Carolina.
Always into baseball?
As long as I can remember, yeah. I mean, I think, I pretty much had a bat in my hand or a glove from the time that I was probably like 3 years old.
Yeah.
So the baseball thing was always a part of my life, part of the experience. And I think it was probably around middle school when we started doing travel ball and stuff like that, when I really, I had a passion for it. So I knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue. My dad loved baseball. I had 3 brothers and a stepbrother. We all sort of excelled in different sports.
Yeah.
So like everything from football to basketball to golf. And then like one of my oldest brother is actually a professional fisherman.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Well, that's
a whole different thing. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
But yeah, the baseball thing, man, I just I had a passion for it and decided early on that that was the dream.
Yeah.
I remember even as early as elementary school, like career day. What do you want to be? And this is actually an interesting story, but I had one of my teachers, going around the room like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said professional baseball. And I'll never forget it because it was kind of like weird/random that a teacher at that age would like give you pushback on that. But she gave me pushback. She was like, well, that's really hard. The chances aren't very good. And like, maybe you should think about something else. And I was like, I mean, you're obviously that young. You don't really think about it. But I had that chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
Because I had like a late, I would say like growth spurt. So I was always like the little guy. I had to, I was very scrappy. I didn't really grow until like my junior, senior year in high school. And then that's when I really started to flourish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was always the dream. So
Yeah.
I got to live that out for 6 years in the Chicago White Sox organization, and
It's amazing.
yeah, it was cool.
So you played in Chicago or?
No, not in Chicago. My career ended in AAA. So I played at I was with the White Sox my entire career.
Yeah.
I pretty much played at every level. So from rookie ball up to AAA,
Okay.
their entire farm league.
Okay.
There are 2 rookie ball teams. There was one in Montana. That was the only team I didn't play for in the White Sox organization. Mm-hmm. But we were all around my hometown, so I was actually at a fun story, especially for my family. It was different for me just because I had to deal with it. But like in low A, our team was actually in my hometown, a small town in a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so like all of my family like rented a suite for the season. It was just like chaos the whole time, because it's like, the chances of getting to play pro ball in your hometown. I mean, literally we probably had 5 guys on the team that were staying at my dad's house, which is 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the stadium.
Oh, wow.
Like that summer.
That's fun. So Charlotte area, kind of.
Yeah, a suburb just north of Charlotte called Kannapolis. Kannapolis, yeah. Yeah, it's claimed to fame as, if you know anything about NASCAR, it's where Dale Earnhardt was born and raised.
Yeah. Well, I know the name Dale Earnhardt.
And then I guess, being in LA, the Corey Seager grew up there. Actually played with his older brother, Kyle. Okay. And their dad, Jeff, was our coach when we were little, doing travel ball and stuff.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So watching his career has been like obviously amazing. Multiple MVPs, World Series MVPs. Been really cool to see that. Wow. But not a whole lot's came out of Kannapolis.
Since then?
Just in general.
Yeah.
It's a super small town.
North Carolina's
Yeah.
got some good stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. Barbecue. Yeah. We have good food.
Oh, yeah.
It might not be the healthiest, but we have good food.
So how did you end up out west? So then what happened?
Well, I guess we kind of skipped the whole college experience. I went to school in Nashville.
Okay.
And oddly enough, you're talking about how dreams and stuff changes. Mm-hmm. I decided to go to Belmont University, which it's known for its music program.
Yeah.
But it does have Division I athletics.
Okay.
So my dad always wanted me to, he wanted me to stay in state and try and play at like a bigger school, like, UNC or Duke or NC State or something like this, just from, a baseball perspective.
Sure.
Which makes a lot of sense. But I had found a passion really from being in the library in high school with like on GarageBand when GarageBand had first came out. And I was just messing with it. And I just like fell in love with like producing or trying to produce at the time music. Mm-hmm. And I decided that, hey, if baseball doesn't work out, I at least want to be doing something that I love. Yeah. And it was sort of easy. So I had majored in music business with an emphasis in production. So a lot of my classes and stuff in college were, in the studio, recording people and just learning about how to run a console
That's cool.
in a studio. So that was really cool. It's sort of a long lost, I would say passion. Like I was still very passionate about it. I play the guitar, write music and stuff. But that aspect of it, obviously I didn't do anything with because I got drafted as a junior and then did the whole baseball thing for 6 years. And then obviously when my baseball career ended, sort of getting into the question about how did I get to LA, I had met my current business partner in the Chicago White Sox organization, Joe, and we roomed on the road in AA. We were playing in Birmingham, Alabama, and when we would play away games, just it's kind of how it works. You pick who's your roommate for the season, type of thing. We got paired up, and we had known each other from spring training a little bit because we were both infielders. Yeah. But it wasn't until that season that we really got to know each other. And after the games and stuff, we'd sort of be in the room unwinding, and we would talk about spiritual things. We would talk about life after baseball, like what does that look like? He was from out here, so he went to USC, grew up in Pasadena, and we had our first business venture idea while we were playing. Okay. And he ended up getting released during that season that we were in, and then I ended up getting released in the off season. So he had went and played and finished the year playing independent ball. And I wrapped up my season. I got a call from our player development coordinator basically saying, hey, my nickname was Wags. Wags, you're old enough to know how this goes. I was getting a little bit older. I wasn't shocked by it.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, you're going to get calls from other teams. And I did. I got calls from about 7 other teams that were trying to pick up the last year of my contract. And I was just at a point where it needed to be the perfect situation. It's like when you think about professional baseball as a kid, you think about it much differently as an adult, and then you've been in it for a little bit. You start to see the business side of it. You start to see that, this isn't, you're not just playing a kid's game. There's like big money behind this business.
Yeah. And
you start to realize like not everybody that could play in the big leagues gets a shot to play in the big leagues, you know? Yeah. And you kind of have to start doing some math. And that's what I did. Not everyone does this, but this is what I did.
Yeah.
So the analytical side of me started going, okay, well, if I make it to the big leagues and I do get my shot and I have a average career, which average career in the big leagues is roughly 3 years. Reason for that is after 3 years, you go through arbitration. And if you can make it through arbitration, then that's when you sign your big money deals, right?
Okay.
The reality for most is that most guys do not make it through arbitration. And so you make league minimum for 3 years, which at the time, league minimum was about, $500K.
It's not bad.
It's not bad for playing a game, right?
For sure.
But when you start doing the math behind it, you're like, wait, like if I get the chance, which I could have, it's like, and I have an average career in the big leagues, I've made $1.5 to $1.75 million pre-tax. And it took me 28 years to do that.
Yeah, that
it starts to
so good. Yeah.
The math
when
doesn't
you
start
put it
looking
in a 28-year perspective.
Right, exactly.
For 3 years, you're like, oh,
3 years is great, yes. Yeah. But like it's just the toil that it takes on your body. So for me, it wasn't. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad's an entrepreneur. My uncle's an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Maybe not so much in the sense of like the things that I've decided to pursue, but in the sense that they started their own business and they've done well for themselves. I would say more blue collar, like they were not like trying to raise money and start like a big technology business or something like this, but they have that entrepreneurial spirit, and that's obviously where I got it. So I was like, if I decide to hang them up, I knew that I was going to try and start something, do something.
Yeah.
And I told my agent, I was like, look, man, it's got to be the perfect situation. So I told him it had to be a National League team just because of the type of player that I was. I was more of it's like a Kike Hernandez type player. I was scrappy, could play multiple positions, tough out at the plate, didn't strike out a whole lot. Team player. Like I was likable. The coaches liked me, and so I stuck around for a long time. I was able to stay healthy, and but it was this National League team. Got to be the perfect situation. Like someone's coming out, or they need a spot in the big leagues for a guy like me, or else I'm gonna hang them up. And so I did. I got calls from about 7 other teams that were wanting, like I said, to pick up last year my contract, and none of it just didn't feel right. And so I decided to hang them up.
When you say hang them up, that's like
that's a term.
My shoes.
Yeah. You hang up your cleats. You're hanging them up. Yeah. You're done. You're calling it.
Hanging them up.
Hanging them up. Yeah. So I think it was probably a few weeks after that decision. I was dealing with it because it was, I think for a lot of guys that go through that experience, you sort of deal with like, there's like an identity crisis.
I would imagine.
You're like, who am I now?
Yeah.
Because you're always,
you're all baseball.
You're always like, baseball Dan or baseball Wags. It's just those two things always went hand in hand. And so you have guys that really, really struggle with that coming out of it. And some of them turn, in the worst cases, like turn to drugs and, it's not good.
Yeah.
And then I think most guys are able to sort of transform that passion and that drive to be successful at something and put it into something else. And thankfully that was what I was able to do.
Yeah.
So we our first business that we started.
So now both you and your partner.
We're done.
We're both done at the same time.
Yep.
Having this realization, you want to be entrepreneurs at the same time.
I didn't know if he was going to keep playing because he had done a season of indie ball. And when I hit him up, I was like, hey Joe, man, like, what's going on? What are you doing these days? And he was helping coach a high school team.
Okay.
And was trying to figure out like what are his next steps. And I was like, dude, we had a really, really cool idea.
Yeah.
should we pursue this?
Yeah.
So we just started having a conversation about it. And I told him, like, dude, this is going to be the hardest thing probably we've ever done.
Yeah.
Like, number one, we don't know anything about technology in terms of starting a technology business. I have the wherewithal to get the business off the ground and, like, we can start moving in the right direction. But, like, I need to know if you can commit to this. And if he gave me his word, I knew we were good because I knew his work ethic from baseball. He was a principled guy. He showed up on time. He's a hard worker. Yeah. So I knew that if he was on board, that, like, I could trust him, he could trust me, and that we could at least try and tackle this thing together. And so the problem that we were solving was when you're playing ball, a lot of times when the game ends, it's 10:30 at night. Like most restaurants and stuff are closed, and the only things that are open are bars. Yeah. You're either eating the clubhouse food, which isn't the best in the minor league, right? It gets better as you get up, as you climb the ladder, but it's not always the best. They're, working on a budget. And a lot of times guys find themselves at, like, whatever is open. And so you have, like, late night bars that still have the kitchen open or whatever. And so, we're traveling around from place to place, and we would always run into the same issues. It's like, as the bars and stuff would start to get more crowded, it become more and more frustrating to, like, put your order in, right? To either get your drink or to put your food order in, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were just like, man, is there a better way? Like, how do you solve this problem of there's 40 people trying to order and you have, 4 people behind the bar trying to handle this. And so we set out to solve that problem, and we called that Business Bar Pay. It actually still exists today. It's pivoted into kind of a completely different thing, but we launched it. That's what brought me out here. Was we were beta testing that product.
Was he out here?
He was, yeah. He was living here in Pasadena. Okay. But he went to SC, and the reason we came out here was because there's an iconic bar on USC's campus called the 901 Bar and Grill. Okay. So a ton of people will recognize what the 90 is, and it was sort of like the perfect place to try and. Joe was basically like, if it will work here, it will work anywhere. And so,
isn't it interesting how so many ideas come out of personal frustration?
Oh,
like baseball to bar pay. It's like, what? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's why. Because you're.
Well, it's a perfect thing because you're actually solving a problem. Yeah. So, like, if you can solve that problem, it seems like there should be. Right. Now, there's many, many reasons that we can get into as to why, that business isn't in every bar, restaurant, hotel around the world. I still think it should be. Yeah. But the market just hasn't demanded it yet. So. Yeah. But it's an amazing product, and it's we had to make a pretty big pivot. I mean, at the end of the day, it works like this. You want to place your order, you just go on your phone, place it. It fires a ticket behind the bar or into the kitchen based on what you order. Yeah. Your tip, everything is included in that. But what it does is it removes the need for the staff to go to a point of sale system. That was ultimately our light bulb moment was how do you solve this problem? Well, you have 4 people behind the bar trying to serve. Yeah. You have 40 people trying to order. Yep. There's a backlog with them on every order. If people aren't keeping their tab open or whatever, they got to go to the point of sale system. Yeah. And it's crazy. We would go sit, have a glass of water, and just, like, try and solve this problem. And they're spending 50% of their time at the point of sale system. Yeah, yeah. So we're like, how do you remove that part of the equation and give that time back? Because you can't just keep hiring infinite amount of staff because you're trying to run a business and the economics doesn't work.
You can only fit so many point of sale systems there too.
Exactly. And those aren't cheap. So we were like, how do we give time back to them? And the way that we did that was put that process, which is really simple. It's, a few taps, place my order, my credit card's attached. Yep. And then instead of them having to go to the POS, they just pull a ticket, it has the order on it. And then customer comes up, shows their order number on their phone, and then the transaction's done. Yeah, makes sense. So we were scaling that up and down the coast of California, going to all the, like, mostly college demographic. And at the time, it was sort of that late night crowd.
You guys are doing this yourselves, selling into these places yourself?
Yep, we would
talking to the managers. Whatever.
Yep, we would go in, talk to the GM, try to get to the owner, get the decision maker to say yes. And this is kind of a fun/funny part of that story is we had a chance encounter with Mark Cuban.
Oh, no way. Shark Tank on the road?
Not on the road, actually at Shellback here in Manhattan Beach on a Tuesday. And as we would like to call it, we had enough feel to not pitch Cuban on our product while he's, trying to enjoy himself,
Shellback.
whatever. But we had this funny little encounter that would be memorable to anyone if you were in either of those shoes. Won't go into the details of what that was, but about a year later, Joe had sort of came across what he believed, he was doing some research, would have been Cuban's email. And he sent an email to it, and the title of it was Flip Cup at Shellback ? He responded the same day. And
No way.
we ended up having like a week-long back and forth of us just telling him about the product.
Yeah.
He really liked it, but his big thing was like, I just feel like this is going to be difficult to scale. And he's right. I mean, you need boots on the ground to go in and sell it. And we've proven that it can work well as like a small to medium-sized business. But you really need some serious firepower to like really go scale that thing.
Country.
But we were able to make a really important pivot in 2020 when COVID happened.
Yeah. By the way, how did you start this? Did you guys save enough money in baseball to fund yourselves? And how long did it take before you were able to pull money out of the business?
We bootstrapped a lot of it. But we did have a friends and family round that we raised capital to build the
seed funding,
the core, most of the software.
Okay.
As you can imagine, we didn't save a ton of money in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
But we contributed what we did, and we raised some friends and family money to basically build the product. And from there, we iterated. Now, what was cool is like the cool thing about that business model is it's monetized on every transaction, right? It's transactional. So that part was cool. There was a direct correlation between usage of the product and our revenue. So the unit economics were great. We had another product called Fast Pass, which is like if the line help you skip the line outside. And that was actually that was actually huge at the college venues and stuff. I mean, that was definitely a moneymaker.
Yeah.
But with COVID, none of that existed.
Right.
So our revenues didn't go down; they went to zero.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating about that is we had just had sort of our first, I'll say second, like more sophisticated angel type investor that had just put some capital into the business. And they put it in like March or like February or March of 2020.
Yeah, right before.
So we'd had all of our conversations leading up. COVID started happening. The money hits our bank account, and then they shut all the bars down. And so we're like, we're not the type of guys that are just going to like, pay ourselves. We're not doing anything. So we hit our investor up like, man, look, like, you want us to wire the money back? We don't know how long this is going to last. And I'll never forget this. He said, you guys, like, I'm investing in your business, but I'm also investing in you guys because I like you. And I think that you guys have, the right mindset. Figure it out. Like, you guys will figure it out. And that was like a really interesting thing. I had started this will be a theme, I think, throughout the rest of my story. Up until that point, I think we were probably 3 years in at that point. No, 3 or 4 years in at that point. As a founder, I was wearing multiple hats, as you can imagine. And one of the hats that I was wearing is like project management and dealing with our developers. Okay. So this was very frustrating for me because I knew nothing. I didn't know how to speak their language.
Yeah.
And I would get super frustrating, whether it's a personality type, I don't know, but I would get super frustrated with just not knowing what the heck they were talking about.
Right.
They were using words I've never heard.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know if we're getting overcharged.
Right. You feel like you're getting hustled. You want to know
exactly
what language they're speaking.
Now, it wasn't quite as bad because when we had originally built the technology, we had outsourced it, and then actually the lead dev on that IT team, when we decided to go a different direction, hit us up on the side and said, hey, I really like this project. Is there any way I can stay involved? So he ended up joining and doing some sweat equity. So that was a little different, but I started feeling more comfortable once that happened with just like asking him questions. And I decided to start just messing around online with learning how to program. It didn't take long, and I realized like, man, I actually really like this. Like I enjoyed it. It wasn't.
Since I knew this about you and you started talking about the engineering at Belmont thing, I was like, oh, okay. He's a technician. This guy's a technician.
I definitely think I like solving problems. I like, and there's something inherent within programming that it tickles something in my brain.
Yeah.
And so just sort of through the mentorship that I was receiving from this very senior level guy and his twin brother, Eric and Keith, shout out. If you see this, you won't, but
you never know.
You never know.
Get it out there.
Yeah, I started learning how to program, and our big pivot in 2020 was we were one of the first to do the QR code digital menus that you would see on all the tables.
Yeah.
And when I say we were the first, we may not have been the first, but we were absolutely a part of the first few that were doing this. Joe and I went around the South Bay from Redondo to El Porto.
Yeah.
And went to every restaurant, bar, hotel that we could find and tried to give them a free QR code. They're like, what is this? Never heard of it. What do you want? What am I supposed to do with this?
What do you mean free? Like,
yeah.
So I don't think I don't even really understand, QR codes. They came to life. They
came back to life
5 or 6 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
No, more than that, 10 years ago. And then they died.
Yep.
And then with COVID, they resurrected
the QR code.
Oh my God.
Sure.
What? Okay. Yeah.
So I think that we had a huge part in that resurrection, actually.
Yeah,
we were going around, and it was funny because we were so early that like we got told no by almost every.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even accept our free QR code.
Yeah.
But we had gotten a hunch from a group that we were working with that owns the 901 and a few other places in Los Angeles that Newsom was going to come out and say that it was going to be a requirement that you had to have disposable menus or some sort of digital thing. But that didn't really exist, at least in like a commercially viable way that a bar owner or restaurant owner would understand.
Yeah.
And so we just immediately like thought to ourselves, could this be an opportunity?
Yeah.
And so we worked with the group that we had been working with for years and said, hey, can we try this at your place? And it's like, well, we have to have a solution. So sure, why not?
Yeah.
Check back in like a week or two later, and they're like, dude, it's going great. Like, people are using it. They don't really have any problems. Like QR code, like if you just scan it with your camera, it works. Like you don't have to download an app or anything. And so I basically put together some software that made it, so easy a caveman could do it type of thing. And we started marketing it on Google. We were spending like, I don't know, $10 to just like test some stuff.
QR code for your restaurant?
Just like different keywords. And it's like that was working. It's like, wow, okay, we spent $10, we made X. So then you bump it up, and then it's like, okay, we spent this and we spent that. And next thing you know, we're spending a lot of money in marketing, and it's working.
Yeah.
And we went from all of a sudden with the order and pay product, you really got to go in, get people to understand it. This is the value of it, something that's new, probably before its time. And then all of a sudden you just had this demand of people needing a solution now. And so we ended up onboarding, I think, over 20,000 merchants in a very short amount of time. And we knew that there would be some sort of lifespan to that. We didn't think that was going to be like a viable thing for in perpetuity. A lot of places still use the QR code stuff. I don't think that it will ever truly go away, but a lot of people have just went back to the normal menus and stuff. So that pivot actually saved the business. And then through that, we had a revelation that one of our big pain points was needing to download an app. And so what we ended up pivoting our order and pay product to was you just need to scan a QR code. You don't need an app. You don't need to create an account.
Yeah.
We're a transactional based business. So like, data is obviously important in technology, but to us, our business model was process payments for merchants. If we capture data on the back end, great. So you didn't have to create an account or anything.
Yep.
You didn't have to have the BarPay app. You could just sort of scan it. And that sort of opened the door to, one of our niches that we're in now is like hotels. So you may go into a hotel room, see a QR code in your room, you hit that, and then allows you to order from the coffee shop or, order from takeout or room service from one of the restaurants that's on premise or something like that.
So the revenue streams are the transactions originated through the QR code at
Correct.
whatever.
And you'd have the room number embedded in the QR code or the table. So like, for example, in this place, if we had it here, this would have a table number.
Yeah. Get me my pure bean flat white with oat milk and then
bring
you get
it
a piece of that
right over.
transaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to stand up.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
So solving problems, engineering. It's interesting. Yeah,
well, I'll tell you what is funny is this was the first, like during that process of getting that many merchants running on this software that I had built as a very junior dev at the time.
Yeah.
Had to certainly bring in some like firepower to like clean up the spaghetti code that I had written. But there was a point where, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at something like social media or something, this is like small potatoes, but at peak time, we would have anywhere from, 1,000 to 1,500 scans per second that were happening, like during lunch and whatever else. And so like, it was really cool to see like, wow, this is servicing a lot of people. We're actually touching a lot of consumer devices.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, it's probably close to 100 million scans that have happened through that product.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun to see that tangible, even though it's data, but you still see a response, an action.
Oh yeah. I mean, you look at like the logs, and this is me just totally like nerding out, geeking out, but it's just like, literally as fast as you can go.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much these days is too, just ethereal. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. When you think about that, like, you talked about your first pivot from baseball, and some guys, lose their identity. You didn't really feel like you lost your identity, or how was that new beginning, and then pivoting in technology?
Well, I'll tell you, I think I was so busy with trying to make that work.
Yeah, you didn't have time.
That I didn't have time to think about it.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a case of, it's out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. People were like, "Oh, you see what's happening?" No, I stopped. I don't even watch baseball. I'll watch the playoffs, but like I did it for as long as I can remember. Yeah. The only thing that I truly missed is just like the feeling of squaring the ball up. Yeah. That's that pure feeling of just, I'll always miss that.
Yeah. I'm sure.
That'll never go away. That and the camaraderie that you have with all your teammates and the friends that you meet and the cool people that you meet through that experience. But
that was what I was going to ask next, was really like, when you go from a team sport to working solo, even as an entrepreneur with a partner, you're still kind of solo, kind of isolated. And then we've been so isolated now. Like, I feel like even leaving college or being in a fraternity and then going to a job, and maybe you make connections with friends and stuff, but men, it seems like there's such this gap of relationship building that just falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
After high school, after college, depending on what you're participating in. But
yeah, for sure.
When you get into going to work.
Yeah, well, that part of it actually was a big shock for me, because I spent so much time with 25 other guys every year.
Yeah.
For as long as I could remember.
Like close.
Very close. I mean, you're spending significant amount of time with these people. You get to know them very, very well. I mean, the bond, especially like the seasons are so long, like the bond that you create with these people is just something that, especially during that time. Yeah. Like I have a lot of buddies that are superstars in the big leagues right now. You know what I mean? And guys that, you could call up, and there's a special bond that you have from going through that minor league experience together. Because everyone's there. Like everyone goes through that. It's very rare that you see someone that sort of skips that process. It's happened. Yeah. Very, very rare.
Yeah.
So everyone, even, your big league veterans, they're going to have some sort of special affinity for their experience in the minor leagues.
They so that was dues, they know.
They put in their dues. They know what it's like. It's such a grind. And that part of it, when it ended, was a bit of a shocker. It's like, man, where are my guys?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that part of it was definitely took some adjusting.
How did you just push through it, or how did you get through that? Or did your business partner and you kind of...
Well, it was nice to have someone...
You had that continuation of that relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice to start a business with someone that had been there and done the same thing, right? And then so when I got out here, I'd taken a one-way flight. I assumed that maybe I would be here for like a month or two to beta test, and then it would go back home, back east. And Joe had a buddy that he played ball with at USC, that had just moved into a place in El Porto. We would hang out at his place all the time. Yeah. So I got introduced to the South Bay. Yeah. And was just like, wow, what is this place? Yeah. Fell in love with it. Was
kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a different time of my life then. Things have changed since then, but we had a lot of fun those first few years of living in the South Bay.
Yeah. LA people seem to have.
Well, what was cool too is there were three of us that were living together at the time, and they're all baseball guys. Yeah. So I had that in that, like, it still kind of felt like we were in it a little bit. That's fun.
It's funny. I had different but similar. I went to Pepperdine and then studied in London for a bit. Came back and got a job at DirecTV right out of grad school, and so then I was living with some of my friends from London back here, and we were and then ended up in Manhattan Beach in the South Bay myself for a while. Yeah. That was the beginning of my 20s. Yeah. And just like socializing.
Yeah, socializing. We'll call it socializing. Yeah.
And good memories,
Yeah, for sure.
And then
what was funny for me is, I mean, the friendships are amazing, and I was sort of newly single when I'd gotten out here, and there was always a part of me that knew I wanted to live in California. I'd done some spring training stuff out here in the past, and I loved Southern California. I loved everything about it, and loved the weather, loved the hills and just the natural beauty, and I was just so excited to be out here. And then I actually met my wife the tail end of that first summer that I was out here. Yeah. So that was really cool.
At Shellback?
I did, yeah. Met her at Shellback. Shellback love story.
So many Shellback connections.
She's such not like a Shellback goer.
I've met her. She's not a Shellback goer. No.
It's not. She's special. And man, she's had such a positive impact on my life.
That's awesome.
I love her.
And she's from back east as well.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Look at you guys.
Yeah.
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 How many years as an entrepreneur?
The idea was in 2014. We started wireframing, ideating, all that stuff in 2015. Okay. Beta was in 2016. Okay. And before that, I had done other things. I had started a clothing company, and that was never like too serious. That was in like the off season of one of my baseball off seasons. We started it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this one was definitely more like we knew that we were gonna have to raise capital. It was like and that was a fun experience. I've raised a decent amount of money at this point for the different ventures and stuff that I've done.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah,
that's like blowing my mind as I listen to all these other podcasts too. Like I listen to How I Built This all the time.
That's a great one, by the way.
I listen to the pitch a lot, and how people are pitching things and what they're looking for, and it just makes so much sense when you're listening to that and your mindset's in that. But for the average person that's not really thinking about that, or what's behind a business, or how do you get a business started, it's like,
I mean, there is such a difference between like just starting a small business as like, hey, I'm going to be the operator of this thing, right, and then starting a business with the intention of like, we're going to grow and scale this thing, and we're going to have a bunch of employees, and then the whole org structure around that, and just it's just
to buy into it and give me their money to trust me, to show my track record, so they can trust me and go.
What's really hard is when you don't have that, when you don't have a track record. Yeah, it's even tougher. And so I think a lot of
traction. Is the key word that I hear out of that.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of traction.
So what's the traction you have? Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it usually starts with you got to have some people that just trust you. Yeah. And I think for us, it wasn't a like, is this going to work? I think the friends and family that invested certainly thought it was a cool idea. I mean, anyone can hear that as a concept and be like, yeah, that's really cool. Can you pull it off? It's more, they knew that we would do everything in our power
to make it
happen.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's been right at 10 years. And it's funny, we were thinking and talking about, because at this point, it's sort of the business runs itself, but we're not actively like out marketing it. And we never really even had a team for that. Everything that we've done has basically been Joe and I and a handful of people behind the scenes that were never necessarily day to day on the development side. We were talking about shutting it down, and we're doing our books. We're like, dude, business just turned a profit. We're breaking even or losing a little bit of money every year, and it turned a profit.
Nice.
So it's like, well, we're not going to shut it down now.
Yeah,
let's just see. Let's see what happens. And what's crazy is we've recently just like out of nowhere started getting inquiries just organically from people finding it online and wanting the order and pay product, which is that is our bread and butter. Like that product is the moneymaker.
Okay.
So
it's so many things in life, as much less businesses. It's like to get pushed past the 4 or 5 year mark is a big
it's
milestone, and then to get to 10, just if you can just keep going. I keep hearing that. Just keep going. The ones that fail are the ones that stop.
Yeah. There's obviously some like strategic things that you have to do in order to survive.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're spending more money than you're making, it has an end, right? For that, luckily we've been able to keep a consistent customer base. It's always made enough to help us as the founders, and then keep the company alive. And ultimately, what we're doing with that at this point is we're just waiting for some, the sentiment to change, because there's some bigger players that have started doing this stuff. We were actually one of the first to do that idea and have it in production.
Okay.
Over the years, we've seen bigger players, bigger point of sale systems that have gotten into the game, but we haven't seen. It's actually more prevalent in Europe. More people are using it in Europe. So like, if it ever starts to happen, and I think the conditions economically may be right, and maybe that's why we're seeing an uptick in people that are interested.
So that's fascinating. And where do you think you would go from here? And like,
I think it's just waiting for a sentiment shift. Like I was saying, we have ready technology. It took us a lot of time, a lot of iterations to get it to the state that it's in.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, knock on wood, because it's mostly bug-free software at this point.
That's cool.
And it's been that way for a number of years. So we've had a very stable product for the last, several years. And, we're servicing anywhere from like major like hotel corporations to large restaurants. And
amazing. Yeah. Have you thought about doubling down and getting a sales force and going?
We have. Yeah. And I'm not going to say that's out of the cards.
Yeah.
That's part of why we're keeping it afloat.
Yeah.
Is we do think that in a future state, the sentiment begins to change. It's a very, very, like the service industry is very, very old school in a lot of ways. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Sure.
And you're trying to, let's just say that one of the biggest issues that we continually ran into with that was the staff not understanding, because they almost feel like it's a replacement when we would
of them.
Yeah. And we would look at it more as like, this is a productivity increase for you. So it's going to allow you to be more productive.
Yeah.
Get more tips, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But, that's why I kind of said, like, economically speaking, for business owners, if wages keep going up, and you might have to reduce some staff, and we have technology that can help with that. So it's not, it's, that is what technology does. If you think about AI and all that stuff that's happening now, like, we are absolutely, it's not getting replaced. It's just, I think technology is
being removed.
Exactly.
More and more friction day by day.
Exactly.
Is being
so removed. Humans naturally are going to have to do, this is crazy. I don't know if you've used AI, or if you don't even have to hardly think.
It's crazy the stuff that you can do, and like that's a whole nother deep dive in things that I've been experimenting from a communications and marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
In trying to scale messaging using AI is unbelievable.
It is.
My personal preference or take on it right now is it's not authentic enough. The stuff that I would want to put out as messaging.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm talking video,
Yeah.
imagery, things like that,
Yes.
that are really impressive, but not quite there yet, depending. For certain generic or less personality-driven businesses, a lot of what I'm involved in is lifestyle marketing stuff. So it has to be super authentic.
Right.
And there's too many holes still.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like unbelievable.
The pace at which it's changing, being on the technology side, I'm seeing it from a different
6
angle.
months, 2 months, boom, boom, boom.
I think that, it is certainly it's a very, I don't know if it's like disruptive in the way that the internet was disruptive to life, because like it's an extension of technology.
Yeah.
That was such a radical shift, like the introduction of the internet. And as that started becoming a thing, I mean, that fundamentally changed how we all do business. And I mean, what industry hasn't been impacted by the internet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would say that there are many industries that, well, they don't realize it yet, but they're going to be impacted by AI as well. But
100%.
it's just,
100%. Everybody's life, even though we might want to deny it, it's going to be pervasive in everything. Right now, it's just oversimplified into ChatGPT, but it's so much.
Well,
more
I mean,
than that.
it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it's a large language model. And what ChatGPT did, and I think they did well, was they made it such that a developer that may not know anything about how to program a large language model or program AI, like they made it accessible, and they made it, now I can build an AI app. You're not rewriting the large language model.
Right.
You're basically just becoming what it's kind of a new term. It's like you're a prompt engineer.
Yeah.
And it's super, super fascinating.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I've been actually doing a pretty deep dive into the last several months.
Yeah.
Is like getting into writing programs that use AI for a number of different things. I'll have to share one with you. It's it's basically a weekly devotional that gets sent out every week on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
It's pretty cool, but it's like basically has an AI that will randomly pick a story from the Bible, like narrate that story in a consumable way as like a devotion, but it's more like, and then it would generate an image, and it just sort of does this all programmatically and text it to you.
Oh, cool.
Just kind of like, that was like one of the first things I built, like, okay, I have this AI doing this thing, right? And it's just fun. It's fun to like sort of see what it comes up with.
I think that's interesting. I'm doing similar things, experiments in the communications scaling of like automations of information input, distilling it into articles, scripts, and distributing it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. So I think people in communications and, branding, even in the consumer facing area, will have to be practitioners of AI, users, and then marketing agencies and businesses, consultants and business advisors will have to be more users and strategists of AI than just the old general thing, because that will just catapult their ability to help more efficiently and at scale.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a requirement.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would you, so now we could talk all day. Maybe we'll chat some more, but I don't want to take up all your time.
No, that's cool, man. I'm enjoying it.
But, so then you entrepreneur now, 12 plus years.
Yeah.
Ish. And you guys live here and married, a couple kids, and what do you think is next in your space a little bit, or what would you, maybe a better and more interesting question is, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Like, your the self that just went to Belmont. What would you tell him now? What would you tell Dan Were you Wags, baseball Wags then? Yeah, you were.
Well, it was funny when I was growing up in North Carolina, it was always WAG, singular. Mm-hmm. And then in college, it
turned
to plural. It's whatever. So now I have this like special things with my buddies back home that they're like, yeah, they got it all wrong.
They're all wrong. It's
WAG. It's just WAG, bro.
Come on.
Anyway, what would I tell? Well, I mean, what's funny is we've spent a decent amount of time talking about one of the projects. I mean, I got involved in the crypto space back in 2014.
Okay.
So I've been following that space for pretty much as long as we had started BarPay, because we felt like there was always going to be potential for something from that industry to impact or give us a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. Sort of through that, I went down that rabbit hole. I've been involved, started businesses in that space. Mm-hmm. So man, what would I tell my 20-year-old self?
Doesn't even have to be business related. I mean, I think.
Oh well.
I think for myself, I think like 20-year-old. There are so many things It's funny. I sent my son a audio message the other day because he's 24. We're having trouble communicating, so I'm like, hey, so we don't get into a little bit of a back and forth, I'm just going to send you this audio message. And then I realized, I need to tell him more of a story about myself and what I'm thinking in my mind, and instead of what I think he should do or what I think he's not doing right.
Yeah.
Which admittedly is sometimes my tendency.
Sure.
As a dad, you're, always correctional. You want the best for them. You want your kids to do better than you did and not experience the same pitfalls. And, we want them to dodge those landmines. Mm-hmm. So I just told him the story about, because I don't think he's ever heard the narrative of, I went to high school. I lived in St. Louis and San Diego and changed schools a lot. And then I went to Pepperdine and I did really well in high school in Pepperdine and then grad school. But I dropped out of grad school. I wish I would have finished grad school. And, just some of those stories. I was like, that's me, I guess, telling my 20-year-old something like, well, maybe you should have done this differently. That's very specific.
That's the classic thing, right? Like, isn't that the father-son dynamic always? And it just generation after generation. This is the thing. And I think it's once you start having kids, you start to realize like, oh, yeah, my dad was right.
Yeah,
he was right. Like, I get it. And so, like, I think one of the things that I would tell my younger self, it's like, look, I mean, you have quote unquote fun when you're young. Yeah. But it's when you put it into perspective, it's not actually fun. It's actually quite destructive and unhealthy and everything else. So I would try to convince my younger self that, and I don't know if he would have listened or if he would listen.
Yeah.
But I would definitely give him some advice on, hey, if you're going to start a business, X, Y, and Z, and all the learnings that I've learned from that. If you're going to raise money, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Nothing after midnight is really ever worth it.
Yeah. Nothing, I mean, it's nothing that happens in a park after dark is worthwhile.
You think it's fun, but like, look, I mean, I did it. I lived it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would try to convince him that that lifestyle is not worth it. I mean, this obviously, like, coming from, I recently gave my life back to Jesus, and that's obviously changed my life a lot. And I grew up in the South. Like, I grew up in sort of in the Bible Belt. Yeah. Like, I was certainly raised in it.
Yeah.
Like, I went my own way, right? Like, I started thinking for myself, and surely this thing that was sold to me as a young man in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, couldn't truly be like the universal truth. You know what I mean? And then I had my own coming to of that, and just a completely different perspective in the way that my relationship with, I would say, Christianity. So much different now. I think it used to be like fear-based.
Yeah.
That sort of led to my changes, whether that's behaviorally or whatever. And now it's changes because I realize how much I'm loved.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just been like such a game changer for me. And so I would try to convince my 20-year-old self that maybe you should look more into the historical evidence of some of these things that maybe you're challenging in your mind, or because it was always a part of me. I mean, my tattoo is "In Thy Presence is Fullness of Joy." And I got that my first year after baseball, so it's always been there.
Yeah.
And I'd made a profession of faith when I was like 14 or something like that. But I would try to tell my 20-year-old self that, like, if you're questioning these things, like, maybe you should, rather than just taking what you've been given, maybe you should go do your own research into this and see what you come away with. Yeah. Because I certainly went down, a different path of exploring different things, a lot of Eastern-based things, and I think it ultimately led me back to where I am now, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah.
As long as you ended up back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so much time wasted and youth on things that we think are so important, but they're really so short term. And I would always tell myself, my 20-year-old self, like, think more eternal, think more long term, think more. Ideally, you live that, longer.
Yeah.
Nothing tragic happens, but, there's such a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And your friends who you listen to, from 12 to whatever, they don't know anything, and they're not helping you out.
Yeah.
Get a great mentor, and that's something when your kids stop listening to you as a parent, you just hope that they're with a good coach or a good teacher, a good mentor of some sort.
Yeah.
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 So, well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. We'll keep chatting.
For sure.